Have you got the wrong idea about personal knowledge management? Because we sure do. I'm Lucas, here with my brother Jack, and we are diving deep into the waters of knowledge management systems. We're thinking today about how we can take action on our knowledge to do useful things in the world. This is our sixth episode in the series, so you might need to roll it back. And in case you're unfamiliar, being wrong is about embracing subjective experience over objective truth. We are not interested in being correct. We just want to explore our own insights and opinions. Jack, remind me where we left off.
Well, at the end of episode number 5, we talked about accessing our information. That was our broad topic. We talked a little about retrieving it, organizing it, and the power that summarization gives us with modern AI capabilities. And that's set us up like a Lob City Clippers alley oop for today's episode about taking action on our knowledge.
Absolutely. I think we are in a place where we have thought about what computers can offload from our knowledge management systems because right now they're very manual and they're very static, and we are moving towards dynamic and personalized knowledge management systems that can really enable you to do more. And so immediately the question becomes, how do you take action based on the knowledge you've stored? I want to remind us of that insight ladder. We're trying to go from data to information to knowledge to wisdom. If we can climb that ladder effectively, we can actually make progress in a way that we have not been able to before.
It's totally unique. It's a great way to think about sort of advancing what you have available to you. If you have information, if you have knowledge, if you have data, there's a step you can take forward. If you have wisdom, there are insights you can extract from your wisdom in itself. But without a doubt, there is a more clear cut way to think about how you can sort of advance and develop your knowledge. And that's really what we're thinking about today. How can we advance our knowledge? How can we take action on it? Turn that knowledge that we have into wisdom that we can use to make actionable decisions, to make smart decisions, to help us be better people in the world.
So, how do we actually use our knowledge? That's the question that comes to mind for me. And I guess the first things that come to mind, broadly speaking, I guess, and this is just because it's maybe how I look at the world, but I feel like I'm constantly doing two things, which are problem solving and decision making. And I think that I'm using my knowledge to make sure that I'm approaching those effectively by making sure that I'm solving problems, thinking about what I already know and how I need what else I might need to know to make progress. When I'm thinking about decision making, I'm thinking about what has and hasn't worked for me before and what the impact of those decisions might be, the consequences of those decisions. So those are at least the first concepts that jump out at me.
I absolutely agree. Every day we're solving problems. Every moment of our lives we are solving problems. You forgot your phone somewhere. You left it in the house. You didn't have your cup of coffee in the morning. You missed the turn to make the freeway entrance that you need to get so you can get to work. There's always problems that are happening. Life in and of itself is just solving problems and struggling through them and then getting to the end of the day. And then, of course, making decisions. We're like literally constantly doing that. Every word that you speak out of your mouth, you had to make the decision to say that. So I think those are by far the two most common things. You're always evaluating options. You're always looking at what's going on around you. You're always trying to use your knowledge to the best of your ability, and you're always trying to have the best potential outcome. So I think that those two are 100% the two most common ways that we use our knowledge in general.
The couple of things that you said there are really important. I think there's this process where we identify issues and then we analyze them against our knowledge and then implement a solution based on our understanding or our expertise. So I would say that ultimately problem solving is absolutely this process of just working through. I see something that went wrong, or I see that something isn't going the way I expected it to. I have identified some issue in the world. I need to understand why that's happening, what the root cause might be, or even just how I could stop whatever is happening from continuing if all I need is a temporary solution. And then you have to actually come up with something that might get it done. So I think this process is a part of our daily routine no matter what, because it's a question of when you don't get what you expect, you need to figure out how you can reorient yourself towards that goal. And then you also mentioned this idea in kind of decision making of evaluating options and considering the potential of those outcomes. And I think that we can sort of combine these two processes. Like when we're solving problems, we need to be making decisions. So what's coming to mind for me is sort of the composability of like, okay, I've analyzed things based on what I know, and I need to now evaluate what the results of those might be in order to come to a final solution to this problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this sort of process is like basically just applicable to everything. I mean, if you're say let's take a little move forward here. Let's say we're thinking about something like a creative project that we're doing. Take the wrong idea, for example. Constantly problem solving and making decisions. We are always doing those things. And of course, this is a project that we have for personal development. So you got two more pieces there: creative projects, personal development. Those are two other places where you can use your knowledge. But guess what? We're still problem solving and making decisions the entire time. This creative endeavor is sort of, a place for us to have our personal development. So, we've then again sort of combined another two of those. And then if you want to take a look at another two of the fields that you could sort of think about, maybe sort of teaching and is another way that you can use your knowledge, hoping to share your insights, your opinions, just like we do here at The Wrong Idea with our audience. And then, you're also going to need to use your knowledge for your work. This is kind of sort of like work, but it's really, really fun work. So, in a sense, we've combined all of these together to sort of almost have tandem partners. But again, all of these sort of integrate together. Your work is going to have creative projects, and your work might have some parts of personal that you need to do. Maybe it's something around team building. It sort of feels like all of these ways that you use your knowledge are very interconnected and can all aid each other.
That's exactly where I wanted to seek this in terms of we're using our problem solving and decision making skills in each of these areas that you're talking about: projects, work, personal or professional development, and certainly just sharing knowledge more broadly. And I think that each of these areas is important and does interrelate to some degree, but I think that the the point is that we're always using knowledge to guide us or inspire us in some way, so that depending on our goals and the outcomes that we want to achieve, we are taking actions that are directionally determined by the the kind of project we're undertaking.
So this is a very, very good point. The sort of goals that you have set for yourself that you need to achieve are very, very, very important to keep in mind when you're doing anything with your knowledge management. And I think I'm sort of going to have this tension about goal setting because I think it's a very important part of taking action with your knowledge. If you don't know what you want to use your knowledge for, then your knowledge sort of starts to lose its sustenance and its purpose. If you're just trying to throw random darts at a dartboard and use your knowledge for random things, then what was really the point of doing your knowledge? You might want to start looking further back in your steps. Did I organize this wrong? Did I not synthesize this right? Did I put it in the wrong place? That's probably an organizational error. Where's the disconnect? Where is it happening? Because really, you want your knowledge management to serve you very, very, very much so in a purpose oriented way. That's what I was looking to say. You want to have your knowledge serve a purpose for you. It shouldn't just be there for the sake of being there. I mean, maybe some of it can, and it's good to get your thoughts and ideas out, but you would ideally like it to at least be somewhere where it doesn't cloud up other information. It was just a way for you to get your thoughts and ideas out. That's a purpose of it being there, even if you're not even using it quite frequently. Making sure that you have a clear goal in mind with what you're trying to do anytime you go and you use your knowledge or you're organizing it or you're even putting it in there, make sure that it all stays organized, it all stays actionable, and it all stays easy to access. So I think that's really, really important. I just wanted to emphasize that.
That's a great point. And I think that it brings me to the next question that I want to ask, which is sort of less about how we use knowledge and more about how we take that step from knowledge to wisdom, which is how do we extract insights from our knowledge? So we can take this in a number of directions, but I think that you touched on a couple of things at the end of the last episode that really help point, or at least point in this direction. And then those were data analysis and visualization tools, because I think you're right about how we can create outputs that allow us to derive our own conclusions. I think the example you used was just sort of determining the frequency of how often you're working in each of the areas of your life. And then I've likened that to maybe how you prioritize the goals that you were just talking about, and being able to just match those up and see if you're spending your time in the places that you feel like you should be. Those kinds of insights, that visualization is giving us a path that we can take to improve our overall productivity or efficiency, or just help us get to our goals faster overall.
I absolutely love this. I think this is really good. I did talk about this at the end of the last episode, and I think that again, I mentioned this idea because I'm very big about knowing yourself very well. And I think that everybody is a very, you know, very personal individual, very individual, quite literally. That sort of idea of individuality is what I'm thinking about here. Everybody is quite unique in how they think and how they feel and how they experience everything in their lives. And your knowledge management system is just another way for you to help get to know yourself, because all of your thinking is there in front of you. Your unfiltered thoughts, your research, your project, stuff like that is all there for you. And there's information there in it which you can help extract to tell you about how you do all of these different tasks, even when you work best, what you spend most of your time on, what do you really prioritize versus what you think you prioritize, what do you maybe need to prioritize more, what do you need to prioritize less. All of those things are there and readily available to you. And we're starting to get to a place where we have more and more tools that allow us to extract those insights. So we have all of the knowledge there. It's a personal knowledge management system, not a personal wisdom management system. I don't know if that's a thing, but I'm sure you could come up with some sort of framework for something along the lines of that. But my point here is you can take all of that knowledge, and once you sort of start to get something of substance from it, and it's not just knowledge there, you're really taking that step, like we talked about here, from knowledge towards wisdom.
I love the idea that, because I think we are building a personal wisdom management system. I think that's sort of what we're going for. I think knowledge management is the term that has been around, but if you think about it, yeah, we are trying to get to the top of that insight ladder. We really want to get to wisdom. And I guess the part that sticks out to me here is this idea, like you're saying, of being able to extract insights from the data, and that's literally from top to bottom the insight ladder for me. It's like we look at raw data, and maybe this is just the kind of mathematician in me, but I like to the key words that pop out: patterns, trends, and correlations. When you're looking at data, if you can figure out those things, you can start to interpret the data and draw meaningful conclusions immediately. And that, so it becomes not just data, you can get all the way to something, some valuable insight. And I guess visualizing it the way you're talking about is, it sort of helps us see those insights or trends that the data, the raw data itself, just can't convey. You know, the right visualization can give you that insight in a way that even just explanation in words can't. So I think the important part here is really this idea of climbing from from data to information to knowledge to wisdom, and extracting those insights and having tools that can help us do that. I guess I will immediately jump into the next area of this, which I think is critical thinking, and I want to know sort of what you imagine that means in the context of extracting insights. How do you, because we were just talking about this the other day, you want to think more about your ability to do critical thinking. So what does that mean in this context to you?
So this is a really interesting question. And I know you have sent me a video about critical thinking, and I'm planning on watching that when I got home tonight. I've had a whole bunch of stuff to do the last couple of days, but I can still give you, I think, a pretty solid answer here. I think that thinking critically about your knowledge here is going to involve a lot of looking at diverse perspectives. And I think this is probably a lot about what critical thinking is about. because with the knowledge that you have, it's sort of your unfiltered perspective from whatever it is. Maybe say you were like you've just done research on something and you've written your summary, your synopsis of whatever it is. There, right there, boom, that's your perspective on what you just researched and what you did. But there's going to be the person who reads its perspective. There's going to be yourself in 15, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 days, a week, a month, a year, that down the future. There's AI's perspective. There's another AI prompts perspective. There are an infinite number of perspectives on whatever you're looking at. So being able to think about what these perspectives can tell you, questioning what you have with you, seeing whether what you have is really not stupid or idiotic and it really has something of value to it, is I think a lot about what the critical thinking is when you're looking at extracting insights.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there to unpack. I think just determining how much you can trust different sources and how you can look at different perspectives and try to consolidate and understand deeper relationships. This is sort of the intent of, once we have knowledge, how are we manipulating it to understand more of those interactions and the dynamic aspect of how knowledge plays together to create new knowledge, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the only thing that can create knowledge is other knowledge. There's well, maybe not, but like in a sense, sort of. Thoughts create knowledge. In a sense, is what I'm thinking about here. You can't really just pop something out of your brain that's super smart and profound without having something to sort of prompt it to go somewhere. Is at least what I'm thinking. Things don't just pop into your mind for no good reason. Something will prompt the thought or the idea because it's been sitting in the back of your mind or whatever. But the ability to create new information is something that AI is really, really, really helpful with. And I say helpful with because I don't want to call it good at creating new information. Because really, we want to emphasize this. We've emphasized this the whole time, but we don't want AI to do our jobs for us. We want it to help us do our jobs. We want to create the information, but stimulus and prompting and ideas and perspective generation is really, really important when coming to these new ideas. So for us to be able to use AI, it enables human brains to sort of look at a gargantuan amount of perspectives and then start to make these connections, start to have these thoughts and these ideas that come up. And that is really where the beauty of artificial intelligence comes in with your knowledge. It allows for the creation of multiple perspectives in a very, very short period of time that allows you to extract valuable insights from your knowledge.
What immediately comes to mind for me is that it really does cover the data and information side of the ladder. Like, if you can use AI to gather that information, it's never been easier to get more information and different pieces of data on things before. Like, these language models are trained on the whole of like internet history, which is going to tell us quite a lot about what exists where and what information you can find, and it can pull that out at a moment's notice. So if we don't have to be as concerned about doing that level of research to find the raw data or to even try to get useful information out of it, if we can focus on those steps of like building that into our knowledge and then extracting as wisdom, like, that's sort of the value we're getting from AI, is that the bottom half of the ladder, and then now we can focus on the upper half. And I think we've had to do a lot more of the, even just getting information out of data has been a big thing still, even since early computers. Like, computers definitely helped capture data, and it's been like that from the beginning. But even at the internet is sort of where you get to the point of, okay, I can actually use information. Now we're sort of, AI, I'm feeling like, is helping us move, okay, up the ladder so we can focus on what we're better at doing, which is like finding meaningful connections in information that is just present. So I think I agree broadly with your perspective there on, like, we need to be using AI to assist in what we're doing, not replace the creation of knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just the fact that we are now able to leverage our brains in such an effective way and in a different way, it opens up this world of possibilities for what the human brain can do. We've talked about this before, and we will talk about it again, basically until the end of this series, and probably even beyond it. The human brain is really good at certain things, and computers are really good at certain things. And if we can leverage what the computer does to leverage what we do really well, then not only are we maximizing the computer, we're maximizing us. And humans are really, really good at finding these sort of insights. That's what we're good at. We can make the jump on the top half of that ladder. AI can do it to an extent, but it's not really going to give you these like deep insights that you can really take into your life. It's not going to give you anything that's kaboom life changing. So, really, why am I saying this? It just means that once you remove the bottom half of that ladder and you're able to leverage the top half of your brain, you start to be able to think of a world in which you don't have to spend so much time doing the things you don't like doing. You're able, as we've already become more enabled to do the things that we enjoy doing more and more, to do the things that you are passionate about. If you're not, if you're incredibly passionate, let's say like you're me about cars, but you don't really enjoy doing so much research. I don't know. Maybe it's for whatever. I'm giving a really random scenario here. Your AI can do all of your bottom end research for you, and then you can come up with those synthesized synopsises at the top, and you're really starting to get it the hearts and the passions of things. So again, the point is that it really starts to aid you with what do you want to get done. It really enables you to take the actionable part of the knowledge management.
So I want to bring this back again to the core question of extracting insights from knowledge. And I think we've touched on a few different tools that we have, but I want to highlight the importance of the feedback process and reflection, and that every action we take has some outcome. And we need to remind ourselves, or determine for ourselves whether that outcome was aligned with what we were intending, or if we're satisfied or unsatisfied with that outcome. And if we're not satisfied with it, why might that be? And doing that critical thinking, that loop of, yeah, what are the results of the decisions I made, so that I can improve my decision making process moving forward.
This is a good point. Understanding why certain things happen, reflecting on what happened with your knowledge. This is a good thing to talk about, because if you're not reflecting back on what's happened and helping it inform you for the future, then I think you're really missing out on a good part of these insights. Your past and what happens behind you should not hurt your future. It should inform your future. It shouldn't rule you. It should only help you make better decisions. If you realize that the notes that you were taking weren't very good for you, you just want to come up with a system that does what you weren't able to do before. It's that simple. All you have to do is make an improvement. And reflection on your it doesn't even necessarily need to be flaws. Maybe it's just suboptimal things that were sort of hanging up your process. Allows you to constantly refine what you're doing, constantly improve your abilities and your skills, and it creates what we really want, which is this dynamic knowledge management model.
Yeah, I also think that the other piece that we haven't touched on as much is the kind of collaborative aspect, the discussions with other people that can have diverse perspectives. So yeah, we talked about perspectives a little bit in terms of AI, what it can give us, but what we also really want is people who have looked at that raw data and come to different conclusions, and have perspectives that they can offer us that we might not have been able to see, patterns we might not have recognized, trends we might not have seen. So the value of being able to hear those additional perspectives and gain insight from not just your knowledge but collective knowledge, I think, is also important.
This idea of diverse perspectives is like really, really, really interesting. And mainly because I think it's the only way that you can really advance your knowledge and create the new knowledge. So once you have all of these diverse perspectives and you're sort of conscious, then you can sort of start to boil them down and think of new and different things. And it's just like to me, it seems sort of weird to have a world without diverse perspectives. And I know that society today is a little adverse to talking about these whole new different perspectives, and it's just odd to me. But having these discussions and having these conversations that are they may feel uncomfortable. I think it's the only way to really move forward, create these new opinions and get these new ideas. Because at the end of the day, we are all wrong and we are always wrong. So why shy away from having those discussions in the first place?
Yeah, also want to. I remember you had were talking about structuring your knowledge in a way where you can teach it to others. I do really think that that's an important aspect of this, where you want to think about how you can present what you know, and that will absolutely help you gain insight into it. I think it's fairly commonly well understood that teaching is one of the best ways to learn. And if you force yourself to kind of frame things that way, it can definitely improve your ability to communicate your knowledge and then to build on it as well.
Well, this is really interesting because I had thought about this a little bit, and I always know that when I have to try and teach somebody an idea, it really makes me have to think out every single part of it really, really well, really, really structured. I can't leave any sort of fine details. I need to be able to answer sort of any question. If I can't explain it, I don't understand it. That's sort of what's at the core of this. And yeah, it really helps you deepen your understanding because if you think about what you need to teach someone about a topic, it might even teach you that there are things that you don't know. Maybe it's a question that comes up of, how would I explain this? I don't know how to explain this. And then maybe you're going to learn something else. And then again, it's also just sort of fun to feel like you're playing that role of a teacher. I certainly enjoy it a little bit because I think that I also enjoy playing the role of the student. Both of them are fun. Both of them have a time and a place. Sometimes you need to be able to give out the information to help other people. Other times you need to be able to take it in, be like a sponge, take in what you can, learn what you can from those who have information and insights to provide to you. So I think the balance of the two of them is really important.
The last part I want to touch on is around when we talked about this in the context of retrieving data, summarization. In the context of taking action on your data, I think of it a little bit more like sort of distilling and condensing your knowledge so that you can keep the key pieces, and like forcing yourself to summarize can really help you retain the knowledge better. And I feel like that is an aspect which I remember you had also been talking about sort of synthesizing your notes, having an AI system that can help you do this and like maintain more of like some kind of meaningful document that has the the key pieces, the summarized pieces of the most important aspects of all the things you've been doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I really wanted to talk about this because I think that being forced to synthesize your knowledge really makes you have to cut out all the bullshit. There's no room for anything that doesn't really matter. You have to really boil down to what's at the core of what is happening. And that really allows you to draw away those big, big, big insights. There are little insights which you'll gain here and there, which will sort of integrate into your mind or maybe slip away and fade away with time. But the big ones that really stick out and stick around you want to have in a place to look back at because those are the ones which can really aid you in creating your wisdom. And I think that's ultimately what the goal is. We want the wisdom, and those big insights are what create that ability for us to bridge that gap. And without synthesizing them, you sort of lose out on an opportunity to make that step. It makes also not to mention it just makes looking at all of your whole other for no better way metric fuck ton of notes a little bit easier. All of that information gets distilled down into something a little easier to take in, so it makes it more digestible, and it also makes it again more actionable.
Well, I think that we've covered a pretty wide range of not just what we can do with our knowledge, but how we can actually extract valuable wisdom from that. So I'm pretty satisfied. Unless there's anything else that you have in mind, I think you can take us home.
Not at all. I appreciated this. This was a lot of fun. And if you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as we did, you can find more content just like this at The Wrong Idea on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And until next week, keep being wrong.